What if I told you this secret to $1 billion fortune isn't about being an innovator, but about being an imitator? Today, we're going to dive into the mind of Mohnish Pabrai, an investor who built his massive wealth on an idea that we're all taught is just wrong: copying.
Seriously, think about it. What if all this pressure we feel to be original, to come up with something brand new, is actually a trap? What if the smartest, safest path to success is just to find what already works and shamelessly clone it? And that's really the heart of Pabrai's whole philosophy. He basically says our obsession with being original is a huge flaw. The market doesn't always need something new. A lot of the time, it just wants another version of something that's already great. You know, when we think of icons like Bill Gates or Sam Walton, we see these brilliant innovators. But Pabrai, he sees them as something else entirely: history's greatest copycats. And that's the exact playbook he used to build his own fortune. Just look at this comparison. On one side, you have everything we're taught in school: innovate, create, you gotta take risks. Pabrai flips that script completely. He argues that real entrepreneurs do everything they can to eliminate risk, and the absolute best way to do that is to copy what's already proven to work. And this isn't just some theory, okay? Think about it. Microsoft Word, it was basically a copy of a program called WordPerfect. Excel, a copy of Lotus. Even the retail giant Walmart was built on stolen ideas. The founder, Sam Walton, flat out admitted he had no original thoughts. He would literally spend his family vacations walking through his competitors' stores with a notebook, just looking for ideas to take back home.
Okay, so this is the million-dollar question, right? If your main goal is to avoid risk at all costs, you can't just copy anything and everything. You have to find very, very specific kinds of opportunities where the odds are just massively stacked in your favor.
And the answer is finding what Pabrai calls asymmetric bets. These are opportunities where the potential upside is just huge, and the downside, well, it's almost zero.
Pabrai lives by this beautifully simple concept. He famously boils it down to this: heads I win, tails I don't lose much. It's not about being some genius who can predict the future. It's about finding situations so obvious they practically feel like cheating.
So let's take his investment in this Canadian steel company called IPSCO. On the surface, it's a boring business in a tough industry. The market was totally freaked out about steel at the time. But when Pabrai started looking under the hood, he found something absolutely extraordinary.
All right, so the stock was trading for $42 a share. Fine. But then he started digging into the company's financials, and that's where he found the hidden treasure. He found that the company had $15 per share just sitting there in cash. And on top of that, another $30 per share in guaranteed earnings coming in from existing contracts. You add that up, that's $45 per share in cash and near cash, with basically no debt. I mean, let's just stop and think about that. The market was offering him the chance to pay $42 or $45 in cash, and he'd get the entire steel business, all the factories, all the equipment, everything for free. It was the classic heads I win, tails I don't lose much bet. The downside was, well, it was virtually zero. Now, finding an opportunity like IPSCO is incredibly rare. You're not just going to stumble on those every day. And that brings us to the next critical piece of Pabrai's whole framework: radical patience and just extreme, intense focus. He borrowed this mental model from his hero, Warren Buffett. I want you to just imagine you get a card that lets you make only 20 investments in your entire life. That's it. Every decision gets a punch. You wouldn't swing at every pitch that comes your way, would you? No. You'd wait and wait and wait for that perfect, slow, fat pitch right down the middle of the plate.
And here's why that kind of discipline is so incredibly important. Get this. Research has shown that just 4% of all public companies are responsible for basically all of the stock market's net gains. Your job isn't to find 100 good ideas. It's to find one of those incredibly rare, exceptional companies and then bet big when you do.
So, does this intense focus thing actually work? Well, let's look at one of Pabrai's biggest investments, which, funnily enough, he now considers one of his biggest mistakes. And it's not because he lost money, it's because he didn't make enough.
So back in 2012, he bought a big stake in Fiat Chrysler. He saw this hidden asset buried inside the company. It owned 80% of Ferrari. A few years later, he sold his shares and made a huge profit. Awesome, right? Well, here's what he calls his billion-dollar mistake. After he sold, Ferrari was spun off into its own company, and its value just went to the moon. By selling Fiat early, he missed out on that massive, massive upside. And it just proves his point. The costliest mistakes aren't losing money. It's selling a truly phenomenal business way too soon.
Okay, so what can we take away from all this in today's world? With crypto, meme stocks, and just constant noise everywhere? Why is this old-school philosophy more relevant today than maybe ever before?
In a world that is completely driven by hype and FOMO, the fear of missing out, Pabrai's strategy is like the ultimate antidote. It's all about ignoring the 99% of distractions out there and developing the discipline to wait for that 1% of opportunities that are true no-brainers. It's about replacing frantic clicking with patient, deep thinking.
But all of this really hinges on one final, powerful idea. It's a rule that you can apply to your career, your business, your life, not just your investments.
It's called the circle of competence, and it's not about being the smartest person in the room. It's about knowing the precise boundaries of what you understand and then never, ever stepping outside of them. You don't have to be an expert on AI and biotech and global economics. You just have to be an expert on your own small patch of turf.
Pabrai tells this amazing story about a real estate developer named John Arrialaga. This guy didn't do Bay Area real estate. He didn't even do California real estate. His entire circle of competence was a 1-mile radius around the Stanford University campus. That's it. He knew every single building, every lot, every deal in that tiny area. And that tiny, focused expertise made him a billionaire.
And that brings us right to the final, crucial question for you. Pabrai's lesson isn't that you need to conquer the world. It's that you need to master your small corner of it. You have to find that small circle where you can become the undisputed expert, and then just ignore everything else. So what's your 1-mile radius?